Welcome to the time of your life. With me today, I've got Lilly, a wonderful friend of mine who I met singing karaoke at the bar. My name's David Ploof. Let's get started. Lilly, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I want you to imagine that you bought a lottery ticket last week. You checked the numbers. They all matched, and you won $2 billion. You've got $2 billion in your bank account. The time is 1:44 p.m. We're in Ferndale, Michigan. What do you do first?
Honestly, I'd be surprised that I'd actually be awake to know that I won the lottery, because I'm just always asleep. Like, that is my thing. I feel like every time I do buy a lottery ticket, I don't even check it.
Yeah.
So I would be the worst person with that. So it'd be like a moment of shock first, just that like I actually went through with checking the numbers to know that I won.
Yeah.
But after that, I feel like you'll always have to go with an impulse purchase first before you actually think through it of what you want to spend your money on.
Yeah.
So I feel like it'd be a hot tub.
A hot
just
tub.
because it's cold here.
Yeah.
And I want something warm in the house.
Well, that's the big question then. You know, before you go splurge on your hot tub, do you want to stay in Michigan?
Yeah, but that's the thing. You don't think through the first thing, I feel like. You're just like, wow, I have all this money. I'm going to do it.
I mean, do you
then
know
you think about it afterwards. And
what
like,
the nearest hot tub store is? Is there like a jacuzzi or a whirlpool? Who makes hot tubs?
Not really sure.
Do you have a truck? How do you move something like that?
I'm probably just, they deliver that stuff, don't they?
Yeah, I suppose.
I would assume so.
Yeah, I would hope so.
I'd have no luck that all by yourself.
Do you think
I'm
it's
not
like
that strong.
Do you think it's same day delivery?
I feel like you could probably pay extra to get it.
Sure.
I mean, you never know.
Do you have a space at your house where you would put a hot tub?
I mean, yeah, I have nothing in my backyard.
It's just empty?
Empty.
No garden?
No. I'm no green thumb whatsoever. I wish. I always want it to be good at gardening. I kill everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ugh.
I'm slowly trying to cultivate some plants. I love just having plants around. I've got a few coffee trees there that are just little sprouts, but we'll see what happens. I've got my fingers crossed.
I see them on your stories all the time. You at least got green.
Yeah.
It's like anything that I try to buy, I'm like, it's green for like 3 days, and then all of a sudden it's dead, and I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And then I'm like, oh yeah, you got to feed those things. Like, if it's not an animal or a human, that's telling me that they need food, I'm like, oh.
But that's another difficult thing. It's you don't want to overwater them. It's you got to get right in the sweet spot where everything's just perfect, just Goldilocks.
Oh God.
So do you think you go to a physical location to you want to look at the hot tub before you buy it?
I mean, maybe. I'm very much an impulse buyer though, with a lot of things. So it's typically just online click buy, and then I'm like, oh, maybe I should have thought that through. That's not necessarily what I needed at the moment. And I bought a new TV in college, and then I was like, oh, I should have bought a computer for classes first. But that was the impulse thing of me being like, oh, that's what I need for the dorm. And then I was like, oh, nope.
Oh.
Go back. And had to re-exchange it for something that it's
so
actually
you got
useful.
a TV and then you went and exchanged it for a laptop?
I had to go back because it's I'd spent too much on the TV, and I had to balance it out. And I was like, oh no, I didn't take into consideration that I also had to, buy a laptop for classes.
Fucking class.
Yeah, kind of important back then.
Yeah, I suppose. If you're into being educated, it's good for the world, good for your knowledge. One of the things that I found really interesting when I was working at Starbucks is how many people I worked with that had college degrees, and we were doing the exact same job. And I was like, I'm glad I didn't do that. Works for some people. Where'd you go?
I mean, I went to Saginaw Valley and Macomb Community College.
Yeah.
But I have 2 degrees and I don't use it either.
Yeah.
I'm on at Starbucks.
But do you feel like you acquired like knowledge that helps you live or like helps you through your day-to-day life?
That's the thing. Like, I feel like when you get into like certain parts of college, you learn something, but a lot of it, I'm like, oh, this is common knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
So especially with business, like there's a few things that they'll touch on that maybe you would have had to like read a book to get the knowledge on and like, you know, get some advice from people. But like a lot of it, when they're talking about it, they're like, oh, you know, you got to communicate good. And it's like, oh, I would kind of assume that you have to communicate to the
well,
people.
Lily. Communicate well. I'm just kidding.
It's so weird to the point that they have to tell you some of the things. And they're like, oh, well, you don't want, you know, people that don't show up to work. And I'm like, wow, would have never guessed. Thank you for making me pay $200 for you to tell me that I don't want employees that don't show up to work.
Right.
Would have never guessed.
Don't hire slackers.
You know, but I mean, certain things.
I will say, so I did go to college. I didn't go to university. I went to OCC and I got a degree in business administration. I will say accounting like really not fully changed my life, but just made me see things in a new perspective. Like being able to like distribute the value of something across time. Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting.
I mean, that's probably honestly the most useful class between that and then they have you take like sanitations class. And I felt like those were the only 2 that were worthwhile for me. Because like, I mean, I also have a business administration degree.
Yeah.
And then I also have a communications and hospitality degree. But
do you still keep in contact with anyone that you met while you're in college or university?
I have like a few teachers that like every once in a while and like 2 or 3 people that I went to school with, but a lot of them, no. Like we'll see each other's things on Facebook maybe and like it, but I have no idea what's going on in their life. I'm just like, wow, that looks pretty from the outside. Like
from a far distance. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like everyone's life looks better online.
That person still exists. How about that? Out in the world, making changes and doing things.
Oh yeah, I used to know them.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Let's say you order the hot tub online, or maybe like, what do you think? Do you go to the store or do you order it online?
I'll say probably order it online so that I don't even have to leave the house.
Okay, so you pull it up like on your phone or your computer, and you just search jacuzzi really quick. You want like something large, like 8-person, 4-person?
Just enough for like 4.
Yeah.
You know, enough leg room, but really only actually for 2 people because I'm not a person that's like, oh yeah, let's get a bunch of people in there. I'm like, no, just enough.
Just something nice and cozy. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that you send out the order. They say, okay, we can get that to you by tomorrow. Let's say, I don't know. That seems like a realistic estimate.
That sounds pretty good.
The time is now 1:52. What do you do next?
I mean, I think at that point, now that I've gotten some impulse spending out of the way, I can actually think about what I'd want to spend money on. And it would either be traveling or finding just some really, really smart people to do research on narcolepsy. Because I struggle with it so much. And like, if there was a better way to do things, whether if it was medication or surgery or just like some sort of like treatment and therapy for it, to where you could actually get past it or even cure it would be really, really nice. But they don't have the resources to do that right now. And there's not a whole lot of actual research. They keep like piecing it together a little bit more and more each year. But as of right now, they think that it's like an uncurable thing that you just have to live with and that you can try to maintain it with medication. But like with everything, like your body gets used to the medication. So it starts to become like less and less effective as you get older.
Yeah.
So like when I think about it, I'm like, oh, I'm probably not going to have like as lively of a life when I'm older, just because like the narcolepsy medication stops working and then I'm sleeping
Sure.
over half of the day.
I have never dealt with narcolepsy, but I had a prescription for Adderall for a while for like ADHD. As an adult, like I didn't even get diagnosed until a couple of years ago. And I was taking it for work. The job that I had, I was sitting at a desk all day in Hawaii, and it was very difficult.
Oh, wow.
And so I got this prescription for Adderall, and I would try to not take it on the weekends because I didn't want to develop that tolerance. I didn't want to be totally reliant on some chemical that like I have no idea where it, like how to produce it. And on the weekends, I would just sleep for like 24, 48 hours straight, like just knocked out. And it felt like so debilitating. So I was only taking it for a couple months, and I weaned myself off of it because not only that, it made me feel a bit robotic. I wanted to establish a baseline where I didn't need anything. Like I would say right now, I consume a lot of caffeine. I like caffeine a lot. Coffee's great. Tea is great. But ideally, like I wouldn't have anything. And then the question becomes, it's like, what motivates you to wake up? What motivates you to be awake? Because I have, I don't know how true this is, but I think like you need to have a reason to be awake. Like
100%.
if I'm in bed, I will just be paralyzed with comfort. And so like everything's just so perfect. Everything is just so good right now. It's like, why would I change anything? And there needs to be that little bit of discomfort, that like edge that motivates you to do stuff, because doing stuff is fun. I like to do stuff.
Oh, well, I would totally agree with that. But like on the narcolepsy side of things, like when you're missing those neurons in your brain, I used to be a person that didn't even like taking like any type of medication. I wanted to do like all herbal supplements if I was gonna take anything. And then they were like, yeah, no, there's nothing you could take. Cause like I will sit there and drink like a bunch of energy drinks, a bunch of coffee, a bunch of teas, and it does nothing.
You still just like pass out randomly? Is that?
Yeah, I like just fall asleep everywhere. And it's like Kirsten always laughs at me because it's like even yesterday, like we went out to the bar and I was like, take my little Provigil and wash it down with a Red Bull. And she's like, oh, you're not going to be able to sleep. And I was like, give it an hour.
Wow.
I got you. I'm still going to go to bed. Like it's not going to keep me awake.
That's amazing.
Just enough to like balance myself out and like have enough energy to actually go out for the night. But then I'm like, as soon as I like sit down, I'm like, oh, so ready for bed. I'm out within like 60 seconds.
I've got another like mantra that I kind of keep internally that is fires don't need rest, they need fuel. So whenever like I feel like tired or like I don't want to do something or unmotivated, I just think to myself, like, add another log to the fire. Like just, gotta find that thing to like keep the fire burning. Everyone has their own like ways of doing that, and who knows what actually fuels us. Like there's all the chemical interactions and such, but I'm not an expert on that by any means.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing. That's where you got to involve like all the smart people that know all the things about body chemistry and the brain, and like, cause that's insane. Cause like, I've taken like a few courses on that stuff, and like it's even just like one section of the brain, there's a million different parts and a million different things that could go wrong and things that you can mess with to alter it. And so when you're thinking about that, it's like, how could one person really know? You need like a whole team of people to try to experiment with things. But until they have money and like willing people to like kind of just basically sit and be watched for things like that, they're not going to be able to get that research, because half the people go undiagnosed for a very long time. and like they said something along the lines of like it's less than like 20% of people that actually have it and that are under 30 that are actually diagnosed.
Wow.
So it's like a lot of people just go and they're just like, oh God, I'm exhausted all the time.
So let's say, I imagine right now your sleep schedule is somewhat dictated by your job and wanting to go out and hang out with friends. If you win the lottery and money is no longer an issue, do you think you quit your job?
I don't, honestly.
Yeah.
I like having something to do every day.
Yeah.
So I think I'd go crazy if I didn't have a job. I would just need something to do constantly. So I'd either have a million projects around the house, which, I mean, I already kind of do because I'm one of those people that I'm like, I like art. So it's like, I'll just start something and I'll start something else and start something else. And people are like, oh my God, did you even finish this thing? And I'm like, oh, but I saw this thing online and then I wanted to try that. So now I'm doing that. And my house would just become a mess if I didn't work. It would just be way too many things started everywhere.
Yeah. I do that sometimes. I was really into painting for a while. I've got all my paintings on the wall there. And I usually would not finish a piece unless I completed it in one session. I would sit down and just start painting and be like, I don't want to stop until it's done, because like that was a way that I found to like keep things rolling or like make sure that I completed it and I didn't get distracted for like a year and never come back to it. But there are some things where I would want to have like a background in the painting. And so I would paint the canvas and I would have to wait for it to dry. And it takes like an hour to dry or something. And so I'd go away and I would totally forget about it. And I'd come back and be like, what did I want to paint on this?
No, I get that because like I have a tattoo on my leg that I started and I have not finished it. Yeah. I started that over a year ago.
What is it?
It's a Scream tattoo because like I'm obsessed with Scream.
Yeah.
But like I started and then I was like, oh, I don't have time to finish like all the black work on this and like correctly shade this like section of it. And now it's just like an empty white space of like a handle on the knife. And it's like, I never like went back to it. Every single time I wear shorts, I'm just like, really gotta do that.
Do something about that.
But then I'll like actually get all my tattoo stuff. And then it's like, I'll be like, no, I'm gonna doodle here and do just something else. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't even finish that. One day.
Yeah. Is it just like tedious work? Is that the...
I mean, part of it is like, when you're tattooing yourself, like, it's your body gets uncomfortable because
I would imagine
you're gonna kind of like bend and just be flexible. And after a certain point, I'm just not flexible.
Yeah.
Like I can be, but like.
Do you do any like yoga or
position.
stretching or anything like that?
Oh yeah, but it's just, your back starts to hurt being in that position, like bent over trying to get to your leg and do it. It's just
wow,
a little bit.
I don't have any tattoos.
Really?
No.
Do you want any?
For a while I did. When I was like 19, I thought to myself like, man, it would be so cool to get a tattoo. And I put a lot of thought into it. I feel like that's like usually how it goes with people. Their first tattoo, they want it to be really meaningful and like have significance, but then after the first one it's like, oh yeah, that's just whatever.
Just getting, and you can like just... ones that you're like, oh, that's stupid, I'm still gonna get it.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I look at, there's a lot of things that I have on my body that like have meaning, and then it's like when I have my arms tattooed and then it's like people are like, oh, what does it mean? I'm like, they're dots.
What does it mean? Don't you have eyes? Like,
I'm like, no, it's just geometrical shapes. That's all it is.
Some of the best tattoos I've ever seen have just been geometry. Mm-hmm. I love like the flower of life or the like mandala work that people get, or even just like trees. For like the first thing that I wanted as a tattoo that I am so glad I didn't get, and which is a reason that today will probably never get a tattoo. I wanted to get a cross. Oh. I was really religious for a while. I worked at like a Christian summer camp, and I was teaching kids about the Lord. And I was like, yeah, like this is my life. I'm so into it. It's so great. I was like, I could get a tattoo. I didn't. Thank God I
Oh
didn't.
my god.
Because,
The amount of people that have crosses on them too, and then later turn out that they don't agree with it or they change their thoughts on things too. It's wild.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is more reliable than people getting like their significant other's name tattooed on
Oh,
them.
that's...
Because the amount of people that I would see like walk into the tattoo shop when I used to work there and be like, "Hey, I want to get my girlfriend's name tattooed." I mean, I was like, "Cool.
You sure about that? Yeah.
How long have you guys been together?" And they'd be like, 3 months. And I'd be like, "Oh, are you sure?" And then like this girl would just be giving me like death eyes because like I'd be asking,
oh, you're like questioning
sure?
their relationship,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, no, you guys are cute, wonderful, but also that's permanent.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see you probably in 6 months to try to cover it up, and like I really hope I don't. I hope you guys are solid, but also I just look at it, and especially when people are young, I'm like, when you think to like the people that you were dating in high school, beginning of college, like, can you imagine still being with that person, like,
No.
and having their name just big bold letters like on your chest or above your eyebrow? And I'm like,
of all places, yeah, the face tattoo.
yeah,
Whoa.
that was the two most common spots.
Yeah.
Where if it was girl, they'd either do collarbone or their finger, but a guy would always go right above the eyebrow or above on his chest.
Wow.
And I just,
do you have any like dream tattoos that you want?
not necessarily. I mean, I kind of just, if it's a place I could reach, I'll do it myself, or it's like I'll typically just pay someone and do it right away. But there are like a few artists like overseas that are just phenomenal. It's like I'd like to go get like something done in like their specialty, to where it's like a little bit more cleaner and just like really, really crisp lines, to where it's like people can recognize what it is from a very far distance. And I always think that's amazing. But it's then you got to do all the, well thought out things of being like, oh, I got to book a flight to this place, make sure that the flight correlates with when that tattoo artist is actually available.
Yeah.
And
it's a lot of planning.
It's so much planning, and I'm not great at planning.
I've seen some like tattoo artists that like specialize in like very specific styles that have been really cool, like tattoos that look like fabric, like realistic, like looking patches.
Tattooing.
I've also seen one that looked like a sticker, like just like a little.
I mean, they always say that all the time too in tattooing, with like, oh, it looks like a sticker. It looks like a sticker. And then there's people that actually make it look like a sticker. But it almost became slang for just like, the color being punched in good, that people would say, oh, it looks like a sticker. And then there came along like a whole different group of people that were like, no, I'm going to make it look like an actual sticker. Yeah. And then they're like, wait, can we still say that for this other thing? Or now it's
See, I didn't even realize that was like slang or like a reference term for tattoo culture. Like I've just seen tattoos that actually look like stickers.
It's insane. There's so many different things, and like when you're around in the environment, you just see so much, and you're like, wow, people really can go pretty much anywhere with tattooing. Like it's insane with the ideas and just the way things can change. Like one person's vision versus another person's vision of the same exact like idea in someone's head, and you like literally have a topic and 4 different people will draw a completely different thing, and it could be very specific topic and someone will still draw it differently, because it's like you got the realism people and the cartoons and all that. And like I always admired people that did new school tattoos. Like I thought they were so cool, but like it was never like my thing because I don't like color myself.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, well, it's fun to draw, but.
Well, that's another thing that I'm nervous about, is because things are always changing. Like the definitions of things could change. Like words, especially, I would never get. I'm just imagining all the people that have like YOLO tattooed on them.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it has to be if it's gonna be words, it has to be something that resonates with you. It can't just be like, oh, this is Silent Times. It's so good. It's just, this is what's popular right now. And people get caught up in the fads of things and they dive way too deep into it. But I mean,
no, if you're into that,
as long as you're not gonna have regrets about it later, and you don't mind being like,
regrets.
oh well, that's
no regrets.
Every single time I see that movie, I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah, what was it? Was about like drug smuggling. What was that movie called?
What
The
are
Millers. Yeah, The Millers.
Jennifer Aniston. That movie, sole reason I went and saw that movie, I was like, oh yes.
There's one scene in that movie where the kid is like, they're talking about how much money they made. And she's like, what, you gave him 100,000? Like he only gave me 50,000. And he's just like, you guys are getting paid. Like,
just so excited to be on a trip with people and being like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I have friends. I'm like, it's so sad, but awesome.
Right. Well, what else do you think you'd buy if money was no object? Or not even buy, but things that you would do, places you would go. Do you like concerts, festivals?
To go to Italy.
Italy?
Because just traveling in general, like I'd want to go everywhere eventually, just to experience like the different cultures and really dive into like the history of places and stuff like that. And it's just kind of cool to learn the different things that are different in each place, because our way of doing things isn't necessarily the best way, but nowhere is. But if you combine all the things, you could come really close to having that perfect way.
And I don't even know if perfect is the right description. You know, I think variety is the spice of life. I don't think there's one thing that's the correct way to do something. You know, it depends on what you're trying to do or what your goals are or like where you're trying to get to. You know, everything's always evolving and changing. But in Italy, is there any like specific thing about that place that attracts you? Is it like the architecture or the food or any specific monuments?
Like, I mean, architecture is always a big thing for me. Just
you're into architecture?
I love it. Like just buildings in general. I love walking in downtown Detroit because of that.
Oh yeah.
But I also am like, oh, we'll go in groups.
I do love being inside of buildings.
Oh, yeah. I just like stare at things.
You know, camping's
like,
great.
Zone out, and people are thinking that like I'm like just ignoring everyone. I'm like, oh no, I'm looking at this odd thing that's on the walls, or this like choice that they made with like how to carve something, and I'm like, I just think it's intricate. It just comes back to art.
1 year are you familiar with Christmas? Mm-hmm. 1 year for Christmas, one of the events was yoga at the Fisher building. Mm-hmm. And it was like in the main hall, everyone was set up doing yoga, and like the intricacy of the walls and the architecture and the artwork that is just covering everything was so stunning to me. And like being in that open state of mind where you start doing yoga and you start to really become immersed with your surroundings, and you start to see things in new ways and perceive more than maybe you were able to perceive in the past. Like it was stunning, like so cool.
I can imagine that being cool. Yeah. I enjoy like the serenity of like a very muted room though with yoga. Yeah. And it being just kind of quiet with like some faint music, just because you could really focus on yourself and like internally, and more so like how you're wanting to change and stuff like that, and admire yourself to where you're kind of going through all your thoughts and thinking it out, rather than focusing on the things around you, because I'm always distracted by things. So I just want to look at everything.
You ever do hot yoga?
No, actually. I wanted to, but like every single time that I go to do it, it's like at a time that I don't want to be there. I'm like, they'll be like, oh, these are the classes that they have. Yeah, and I work in the mornings. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well, and they just don't really typically do it at night. Yeah. There'll be like one class, and they'll be like, oh, that one's full. I'm like, okay.
I've done it a few times. I had like the trial membership to the Midtown Bikram in Detroit, and you know they heat the room up to like 90 degrees or like close to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and I felt like I was gonna die.
See, that sounds wonderful.
It was.
That temperature. I mean, my house, I feel like I keep at 80 degrees. I love
keep
the
this
warm.
place pretty warm. Like usually I'll have the thermostat like between like 72 and 75. Just like I adjusted to Hawaii temperatures and never quite fully adjusted back when I returned.
I don't know how you returned. I don't know if I'd come back if I was in Hawaii.
Well, did I ever tell you like the full story of why I left?
No.
I had a broken jaw.
Oh, dear Lord.
Yeah. I got roundhouse kicked in the face in a freak accident. Total wrong place, wrong time. There was some dude in the street who was like high on all sorts of fucked up drugs or something. And I like there was a commotion, and so I looked, and I was in a bar, and I walked outside to see what was happening. And before I even realized what was going on, he thought I was like with his friend or something, and boom, I got kicked in the face.
Oh no.
I didn't know it at the time, but I had a broken jaw. It took me 7 days to find a doctor because the only facial surgeons on the big island of Hawaii were on vacation that week. Both of them. There's only two, and somehow they're both on vacation. They've got to know each other. I guess maybe they're on vacation together.
I mean, maybe.
So I had to fly to another island, commercial, and have my jaw wired shut for 7 weeks. Where I got really, really good at making smoothies. But it was just kind of like a traumatic experience, and I wanted to be in a place that I felt more comfortable. And also it's expensive there. You know, I wasn't quite I was living right at the edge of my means, and it was a little bit stressful. So it's nice to be back somewhere familiar.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought about moving to Australia.
Yeah.
Just because, we went there for a vacation, but just
How
the
long?
way that they, about 3 months, maybe 2
That's a
months.
pretty long vacation.
It was a really actually good one. We were in Melbourne for like a week, Gold Coast for a week, and Sydney for a week, and we just kind of bounced around, and then we ended up back in the States in California for a while. But I just wanted to stay actually in Australia. I was like, especially with how they admire the arts and actually just hospitality fields around there. They treat them the same as doctors and lawyers, and it's they get paid so well over there that it's because I met a musician over there, Jake, and he just kept sitting there talking, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm going to eventually come to the States, but I hear that, it could be kind of rough for artists. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, do you do well here? Because he was playing in the corner of a restaurant, and there wasn't a whole lot of people giving him attention. He goes, oh yeah, I live fairly well. He goes, I play twice a week, and I can afford my apartment, and
that's
I don't. And I'm like, oh well, do you have another job? And he goes, no. And I'm like, so playing small gigs in the restaurants pay enough for you to live off of? And he's like, well, yeah. And I was just like, oh my God, we're terrible to our artists. We just are no.
Yeah. I mean, I can hardly comprehend that.
Actually get paid for it here.
Oh, as a musician, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think I've never experienced a place where that's totally true. I think where you can just maybe play a couple gigs a week and survive off that if you're just an up and coming artist.
Maybe it might have just been a good luck thing for him.
Maybe I just lives very frugally.
Even the people that were bartending were oh yeah, no, you make decent money, everyone treats you nice. And I'm like, oh, you don't have people yell at you that you're not getting it to them fast enough? And they're like, oh no. Well, sometimes tourists. And I'm like, so everyone's just respectful.
Everyone's chill.
They're like, yeah. If you're a really good waiter, waitress, bartender, you get good tips. I'm like, so you don't stress about getting good tips to live. And they're like, well, we get paid still. And I'm like, oh, you guys don't make $2 an hour when you bartend? Oh, okay, this is a different culture over here. Yeah. Guys, respect that side of things.
That's a reason I feel like I don't travel very much, is because whenever I go somewhere, I'm like, oh, I can just stay here. And it's not like a great way to form long-term relationships.
Yeah.
There's something to like having a community around where you are that is worth more to me than like any, art piece or any like venue or whatever. That could be in like a particular space. I did have a dream for a while that I could move to a new place every year for a year, like for like 10 years. And I could live in 10 different places and fully experience those places and like have communities in all of them. And then I could just like travel wherever I want and I would know everyone everywhere I go. And I thought that was a cool idea.
I mean, that would be ideal when you think about it, especially if you're able to form the connections that you could go back to all those places. And then, like, after you're done being in all the places, you're just like, oh, I could just bounce around and see everyone. But the question is, would you be able to find, like, the same type of secure group in each place that you felt comfortable and actually loved by people? Or would it just be like, okay, these people tolerate me? Like, because even just going from, like, my experience with people in high school to like the group of people I am with now versus the people I was with in college, like the group in Ferndale really is just everyone is like genuine and they are who they say they are for the most part. And that's something that the people in my past weren't necessarily great about.
Sure.
Some of them they were and they are, and I still keep in contact with those people, but...
Well, let's say you're taking a trip, whether it's Italy or Australia or anywhere you want to go. How many people do you think you travel with? What would be your ideal number of people, traveling companions?
One.
One? Yeah?
Just one.
Yeah.
I think when it's too big of groups, it gets kind of chaotic.
Yeah.
I like the calmness of things and being able to kind of just do whatever. And if it's a small enough group, you could typically get into any place and do anything. And if it's someone that, like, you are planning the trip with and it's only one other person, you could kind of talk through, like, what are the main things that you want to hit and actually do, rather than it be everyone, like, in a house once you finally get someplace being like, oh, I want to go see this. And the other person's like, no, I'm going to go here. And then you guys basically just all scatter and split up, and then it's 2 people here, 3 people there, and I'm like,
I mean, that could be kind of cool if you had like a house that you were all staying in. Mm-hmm. Everyone goes out and does their own thing. Then you meet up at the end of the night, and everyone can share their stories. Like, I went to this place, and this place was really cool, or I saw this thing, and like, you should go check it out because this beach was amazing, or whatever stories. And then you can exchange that information, and then you're still together but separate, and it's like
I feel like that'd
way.
be a great thing if like you guys were all living in the area for a while, and like almost the same experience of doing that year jump around to each place. If you got a group of like 4 people to do it with you, and you guys all jumped from house to house to house in different locations, that would be great. But like doing it as a vacation with a bunch of people, then I'm like, but what if I wanted to do those things too? Like, I'd rather do them with the people that I came with. And, like, actually, like, if I'm going to plan the time to plan a vacation with someone, I want to actually be on the vacation with them and not just, like, passing by and being in the same spot.
I would say I mostly agree with you. I think, like, 2 people is good for, exploring new areas. I'll even, like, go alone a lot of the time to new places, even just around here. If there's like a new bar that I want to check out or a new thing that I want to do, I'll just go by myself because I don't want to be tied down to anything. And it's like, if I see an opportunity or a place to go, or like I want to make connections, like I find like, I can't be more efficient than when I am with myself. Mm-hmm. But also, like, some people you just click with and you just are on the same wavelength, and it's almost like everything is just so easy. Like, you don't need, like, there's never any disagreements because you just are aligned in the same way. Where I've been with, like, groups of 4, like myself and 3 others, where we're just all so in sync that it feels like, oh yeah, we're going here. Of course we're going here. Oh, we're doing this. Oh, of course we're doing this. And it's cool, but like really it doesn't matter, how many people you're with.
No, it's just gotta be that you have to have the same disposition about the things that you're doing. Because if one person's more of a relaxed person that just wants to sleep, and then the other person's wanting to constantly go, 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 there's a lot of like tension that it feels like it happens after a few days of being on the trip, because people are like, oh, well, why don't you respect this thing that I want to do? And I never want to turn into like a fight with people over something that you're trying to have like a relaxing, good, enjoyable time. So it's like it's got to be someone that almost matches the same energy as me on vacation.
Yeah, there was this like graph or just layout of something called Thrive that I saw once, and it was like 4 quadrants, just like laying out that idea of like the different types of good times you can have, where there's like relaxing, calm, like relaxing, energetic, excited, and like excited, calm. And that there's all these like different ways to be, where sometimes you want to be like excited and dancing and high energy, and other times you just want to be like laying in a cuddle puddle, like doing nothing, just like soaking in the music. And like the ability to like shift quickly between those depending on like how everyone's feeling and what you want to do is like a really powerful skill.
Oh yeah, if you can adapt to any situation, still enjoy it. Like, I mean, I can't see how you couldn't be happy in life. Like, you just if you can constantly adapt and just be happy with whatever's going around. Like,
have you ever heard of the Huberman Lab?
No.
It's this professor at Stanford University who has a podcast where he just shares information freely to educate people on health and like a whole wide variety of topics. And one of the things he talks about, he's just got a really good definition for addiction and happiness. And the idea being what addiction is the progressive narrowing of the things that bring you pleasure or joy, where if you get so focused on just having that one thing and you can't be happy unless you have that one thing, like that's called an addiction, because like there's nothing else that can bring you joy, even though there's a lot of good things in the world. Mm-hmm. But like happiness or like expanding your mind or like, I don't remember, like, there's a million different terms you could use to describe it. Like happiness is when it's a progressive broadening of the things that bring you joy, where it's like not just this, but like this too, and this too, and this thing's also good. And like there are so many different ways that we can experience goodness.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's also like happiness can be found in things, or you can look at it as a feeling, or even like you hear people describe it as a person, sometimes even for them. And it can be healthy or unhealthy when people do that. But if they describe it as multiple things and not just like a singular thing, I always think it's kind of beautiful that people look at it and they're like, oh, happiness is this person and this friendship that I have and this thing that I like to do and this place that I like to go, rather than it just being like, oh, this is the chemical side of it, that this release that I get. And it's like, no, it's all these things that you appreciate.
Do you feel like, do you have like a favorite food?
Food, that's hard. I feel like it just has to be like soup in general.
Soup?
Yeah. All of it.
All soup, any soup.
I can always go for soup.
Potato soup.
Mm-hmm. The main one for me is Tom Yum soup.
Tom Yum?
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
I don't know that one.
It's a Thai soup.
Ooh, I like Thai.
It is phenomenal. But I feel like that might just be my kick right now because there's a Thai like restaurant like within a minute of my house. So I'm like, oh, I'll stop by and I'll be like, oh, I should just get soup. And I'll be like, or I could actually cook for myself.
I love, like at this place, I'm right across the street from Meijer. So I go to Meijer a lot, and it's great because I can just walk there. So I always have like a fully stocked fridge of groceries and just like whatever
See,
food
I
that
would
I want.
like that so much because then I would feel like I wouldn't have a fully stocked fridge.
Oh, because you would always
But
think,
then I would just be able to decide what I want in
yeah,
the day and be able to go get the ingredients for it.
yeah,
So that I wasn't like buying a bunch of stuff and then looking at it the next day and being like, I don't want that. Because I feel like that's what I do. I'll be like in one mood and I'll just buy everything that falls under that mood rather than buying a variety. And then I'll be like disappointed that I didn't buy the variety like 3 days later. And I'm like, oh, nope.
yeah. Gotta live in the moment.
Yeah.
You just gotta go with what you want. Do you think if money was no obstacle, would you like buy groceries and cook for yourself? Would you eat out for every meal? Would you get a personal chef?
I would say about 50-50. I definitely wouldn't do the personal chef route. I actually
Personal
like to
chef
cook.
feels weird.
So it's just that sometimes it could be a lot of work. I like cooking when there's like other people with me so that it's not just for me. Because if it's just for me, I typically fall asleep at some point. I'll be like, as soon as it goes into the oven and I've done like all the hard work, then I end up burning it because I fall asleep and I'm like, ah, damn. But if people are around, then it's like I get to sit and talk to them as I'm cooking, and I always enjoy that. But going out's also nice just for the like experience and being able to try things that you don't know how to cook or that you didn't even know really were a thing or even thought to like combine the flavors of. But I always like to try new things, and sometimes I like them, sometimes not so much. But I'm always a person that's like, I'll be like, ooh, that sounds weird. That's different. I'm going to try that. And then people are like, do you even know what it is? I'm like, no.
All right, send it.
But why why not?
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that could happen?
I try not to think about it. For a while, I was really paranoid with the food I would eat.
Mm-hmm.
I thought still I've got a pretty consistent diet where I'll eat the same things. Like I eat oatmeal for breakfast a lot, and I'll have like potatoes, like spinach wraps, like these weird little things that I make. Sometimes I'll have something new, and it just like totally throws off my perceptions, like something about the chemistry of it and how I'm perceiving the world. Like I cut meat out of my diet. Like I'm 95% plant-based, and that solved pretty much everything.
Okay.
I just don't feel like it's food. For me, like it doesn't, I don't know. I've got like bad energy around it. But like I love to try new flavors, especially with drinks, like beverages. I don't know why, like drinking something feels so much easier than eating, like when I'm like looking for new flavors. Yeah, I don't know. Are there any like favorite restaurants that you've been to, or any restaurants that you really want to try that you've seen and are excited about?
I can't think of any right now. My mind's going blank.
Yeah.
But we just kind of bounce around.
You like a lot of stuff in Ferndale?
You can't go wrong with it. I feel like the bars in Ferndale are really good.
Yeah.
But the food is hit or miss. But the Oakland and Traverse City whiskey, like they have phenomenal drinks.
I haven't been there.
And like even the Oakland probably more so for you because they have like mocktails that they do too.
Yeah.
And they have like options that pretty much everything on their menu they can make without alcohol and make it taste almost exactly the same. And that I always appreciate because like I'll go back and forth on whether I want to drink or not drink. But they're really good about like almost creating the same exact flavor regardless of whether the liquor's in there or not.
That's cool. I found like some really good spicy drinks. How do you feel about spicy drinks?
It depends on if it's spicy, it tastes good, or if it's just heat. Even with food, sometimes I could do it when it's super spicy that it's just heat, but when it's a drink, I want it to be spicy flavorful rather than to where you just taste burn.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be like a balance to it.
It's all about finding that balance. Balancing all things. Yeah. Well, what else? Like, do you have any other like big dream like festivals or cruises or events or like
I mean, I do want to go to like a horror convention.
a horror convention?
I love scary movies.
Yeah.
So they do like these big, huge horror conventions, which aren't really all that expensive. It's just making the time to actually go to one and be able to put aside the money and time and
Yeah,
get the time
time
off
is
of
always
work.
the obstacle.
Doing the route and being like, do I want to drive? Do I want to fly? It's
Where does that
so
convention
much.
take place?
There's one in Ohio and there's one in California. But they're both pretty much comparable. But they'll have like a panel of different actors and actresses that are in scary movies, and they do like a few different screenings of the new movies coming out, and just like props.
Do you
and
like
whatnot.
dress up for something like that?
I'm not really sure. I don't.
You
I think
like
you
Halloween?
can.
I would imagine at a horror convention, everyone is dressed up with like cool prosthetics and like fake blood like dripping from them, and like I don't know.
That would be cool if they did.
Yeah.
And I love all of the prosthetic makeup and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. They used to have that show Face Off. I don't know if you ever watched that.
Can't say that I have.
But it was like a competitive TV show that was solely in like FX makeup. So they'd have like different challenges, and it was phenomenal. Some of the things that people would come up with and how realistic some of it would look, or just like how they could dive into the cheesy aspects of it too and still make it look good in quality,
Yeah.
but still keep like the cheesy aspect to it, where that's like they're like, oh, we want to improve
The
on
silly
it,
spirit,
but we still want to like
Yeah.
keep the almost like
lightheartedness.
yeah, like I mean, there's horror movies that try to go for like the like realistic look to things, and there's other ones that want it to almost look like the same way that it did in the 90s, where it's like you're like, oh, that's cheesy.
Yeah.
But they do it on purpose now rather than it being the only thing that they had, where like you watch some of those movies and when they first came out, people were like, oh my god, can you believe they did that? And now you're like, oh wow, that's cheesy.
I will say I've got a lot of respect for like makeup artists of all kind. I tried to do some like face makeup on myself one time ever, maybe twice, for Theater Bazaar. I just like was dressed up as some kind of ghoul or something, not even a specific costume, but I wanted to have, face paint or like makeup. And it was a lot more difficult than I thought. I don't know if maybe I just had like inexpensive product that wasn't good.
It's time
or
consuming.
Yeah.
It's the thing. Is that if you don't put the time in, it's just not going to look good. I mean, Theater Bazaar too, like people go all out.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, there's some like really, really cool stuff. Would you ever have you ever done like extravagant costumes or makeup like that?
No, but just because I haven't had like really the opportunity to.
Yeah, you gotta have the
And
right
when
place to go, or
having the right place to go and like to where it seems like it's logical to spend that much money on something like that, because if it's just for you to have, like just
like going out to the grocery store.
You're like, where am I gonna wear this?
Yeah,
But
Starbucks.
You're still sometimes like, oh yeah, they'd love that.
So while I was working at Starbucks, I don't know like how or why, but there was some promotion where they wanted us to do like a spirit week where we dressed up as something like every day, but the customers didn't know about it. It's like this really strange thing where they told all of us to dress up. It was like, oh, it's superhero day. And we dressed up, or like some of us did, some of us didn't, to varying levels, like just a t-shirt or whatever. And the customers would come in and they'd be like, what's going on? Like, why are you dressed like that?
Yeah, they call it like partner appreciation.
Oh, they still do that?
Week. And it's just like,
why?
Like, if you want to appreciate your employees, money's the way to go. Like, or if we're going to do themes, let me wear sweatpants.
Yeah.
I want to wear sweatpants at work. Like, I'm not too worried about, like, wearing a certain color or, a theme. But I'm like, let me wear comfy clothes at work. Or, like, give us a grace period of, like, how long we have to be at work or whatnot. It'd be nicer if they did something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's always, like, cookies and that stuff. And I'm like, oh, I don't really
I got
eat that
some
much
pins.
sweets.
I wish I still had the pin. Were you around during the Good Feels Good?
I think so.
There's a pin that they had of like the logo for this campaign. Just said Good Feels Good, and it had like some fruits on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a really cool pin. And I had one, and I, lost it or misplaced it, or, it was such a long time ago. I don't know what happened to it. Because now I'm really into collecting pins, and I like pins a lot. I don't know if you've seen my jacket that has all the pins on it.
I feel like I always lose my pins when I pin them actually on things.
Yeah.
I don't know how. They just fall off in the bars because I lose like the back of them. And then
Yeah, you gotta have a good backing.
Damn.
Yeah.
But like, I will have a bunch and then I'll come home with 3, and I'm like, whoop, my bad. I hope that didn't end up in someone's foot.
Yeah.
Like, that's more my concern rather than I lost
just
it. I'm
like
just
a
like, hey.
thumbtack on the ground. Yeah. Pins, collecting stickers has been pretty fun. I've got a good sticker collection that I haven't stuck. Like I've got a few on my laptop. Mm-hmm. Like these are like the really good ones.
So
or
you
like
just
the ones.
keep them like in a book? Or?
Yeah. I can show you my sticker collection if you want to see it.
Okay.
It's like another like little thing that is just these memories of moments that can last not forever, but for a long time, and like keep the spark of that memory alive of, usually when I go out and do things, it's enjoyable because I make it enjoyable. Like, wherever you go, you're the master of your own experience. You create the emotions that you want to feel, or like, you react to the external environments. Like ultimately it's under your control to a certain extent. And so I usually have a good time when I go out.
Well,
and
the thing is too, like, if you're not enjoying yourself, either leave and do something else.
Right.
Or like, don't make a big moment out of it. Like,
Yeah.
either try to change your energy or decide that this thing might not be for you and do something else, and you could still have a good day. You just have to alter your plans from where you thought you might be going for the day and be like, oh, this isn't the energy I want today, so maybe it's not karaoke today because everyone's so high energy. And I'm like, sometimes I walk in there and I'm like, oh, I love these people, but I feel like I'm antisocial at the moment because I just am overwhelmed. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to say hi. I'm going to still talk to everyone, but then I'm going to go choose to do something else and like go paint. And then I'm like, oh, I enjoyed that for today. And then other days I'll be like, oh yes, I want to be out and loud and like talking to a million people and dancing and whatnot.
I wonder if the corner has stickers. I'm sure they do. Detroit Axe.
I think so.
I should get myself a Detroit Axe.
Detroit Axe, I feel like would. They have a bunch of merchandise.
Yeah. I might even get a t-shirt. I like getting merch. Same thing, like keep the memories.
Oh, yeah. It was like guitar picks for me. I used to collect those from shows that I went to just because like it's something super, super small that wouldn't take up a bunch of room. Yeah. Because I used to buy like a bunch of concert tees, but then I had way too many of them. And I was like, ooh, I should stop buying a concert tee at every single show. Because,
do you wear a lot of concert tees?
I mean, I wear them at home or when I go to the gym, but like, I also, when I actually leave the house, I try to look cute and not,
like,
just in a t-shirt. Like, if I'm at work, maybe, but they won't let you wear a band t-shirt. So it's like, it's basically when I'm home. Yeah.
I will say at that bar in particular, I feel that way that you're describing a lot, where it's just like such a overwhelming energy, where it's like, it can even be love. It can even be like all these good things, but it's coming from every direction. It's like you don't know where to focus or like what to like do, and it can be very overwhelming.
That's the thing too. Sometimes it could be the exact thing you need because it can pull you out of like a weird funk. Yeah. because everyone's coming at you with like this great energy, and like it can pull you straight out of a weird mood you're in, and you're like, wow, this feels wonderful. I'm so glad I actually did come out when I didn't want to leave the house. But then on other days I'm just like, oh, I can't do this and give people the energy that I'd want people to give me. So like if I can't reciprocate like that attention, and like when people are talking, like I want to be able to focus on what they're saying and either just listen and respect what they're saying, or be able to like respond and actually talk and have a genuine conversation with them, rather than just being like, okay, cool, but all these things are happening. And because I'll get distracted sometimes, and I'll be like, oh, I don't have the attention span to actually give you what you deserve at the moment, and I'm so sorry, but I'm
that's what happens
30% of what you said. And I was like, oh no.
Chaotic environments. Yeah. Unfortunately, we are on a little bit of a time constraint here. We've been going for about an hour, so I'm gonna cut us off on this. Is there any closing remarks? Anything you want to say to the people?
I mean, I don't think so.
I mean, if anyone makes it this far, congratulations. Not a lot of people watch this podcast, but
I mean, you never know. Maybe it'll become a big
This will be the one. This will be the one.
Oh, I hope not. I mean, I hope for you, yes.
No, yeah.
Let's hope it's someone more interesting the next time.
Any closing remarks for the people?
No, just, start tuning in to David's podcast finally.
That's a great recommendation.
To come back.
Yeah. This has been the time of your life. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.